Leave the children alone. Leave them alone. Let the children go. Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children in. You must have a heart of stone. A heart of stone. Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children in. Leave them, let them come home. Leave the children alone. Why did you hurt a little child? An angel with such a beautiful smile. Why? Remember you was a child before. A child who was loved and adored. What could have urged you to do such an heinous act? You and the devil must have made a pact. To working towards your own demise. A brutish fella like you should be chastised. For you like no brimstone and fire. Thought you'd grab a tire. Fire! Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children in. You must have a heart of stone. Leave the children alone. Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children in. Leave them, let them come home. Let them come home. You better fight, I don't like your slide. Praying on the children. Molester against you, I testify. I hope you rot in jail and die. Mama never grow with so. Papa never grow with so. No, I tell you what that if you know. Set a better example. Leave the children alone. Leave them alone. Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children in. You must have a heart of stone. Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children. Leave the children alone. Then let them come home. Let them come home. Listen, leave the children and let them grow. Who are kidnap them, please let them go. They are the boys and girls of today, but you men and men of tomorrow, so. When you are kill off the youths for, when you fear be them tutor. If you destroy the children, that means you are destroy the future. God is alive and kicking. Watch the clock, the time is ticking. Protect the children. Don't you molest them. Don't you use and abuse them. Talking to the stranger in the street. Talking to the next door neighbor. Talking to the parents. Show them love. Leave the children alone. Can't believe some big man and no girls in a school uniform. What kind of art a man could have to molest a baby? One when newly born. It seems like mankind have no heart, no color. Them brain truly gone. So tell me now if something wrong, really wrong. Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children. Leave the children alone. Must have a heart of stone. Leave them alone. Hey, you predators out there, leave the little children. Leave them, let them go home. No child molesting. Why did you hurt that little child? Why? Angel with such a beautiful smile. Remember you was a child before. What could have urged you to do such an heinous act? You and the devil must have made a pact. You working towards your own demise. A brutish fella like you should be chastised. For lightning, brimstone and fire. Fire! Rubber tire.
Hello, welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces, and shout out to all of you who have liked, subscribed, and shared. That song that was just playing was written by Steve Tolo and vocalized by Steve Tolo and Giovanno. It was produced by me under my Bava production label, and I do own the rights to that song, so there's no copyright infringement here. But once again, welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces. Rape. Rape isn't always sexual. Rape isn't always physical. And the underprivileged and poor Black Jamaican man is being raped all over the place. And tonight I'm going to entitle this, and I made notes, How the Jamaican Government Systematically Undermines the Black Man's Progress and Keeps Him in Poverty. One of my favorite things to do when I visit Jamaica is to browse and shop in the outdoor market, the outdoor Maypen market. I was recently in Jamaica. I am now back with my boys. Lost 10 pounds. My skin got darker, and I'm loving my darkness. And there's also a lack of respect for the rights of the Black man and the mentally challenged in Jamaica. And this is appalling, and it's cause for concern. So when I go to Maypen Market, I usually do a quick walkthrough to examine the fruits and vegetables, etc., and find out the prices of the merchandise that I'm interested in or that appeals to me. And after my initial examination, I usually go back and buy what I want from the vendors who do not hesitate to tell me the price of something. The vendors who don't have to think about what price to tell me because they've picked up that I'm a foreigner. So, if I do ask the price, it is because what they're selling appeals to me. I've noticed, though, over the years that the vendors are getting younger and younger. And in Jamaica, we refer to the vendors as higglers. Higgling defined, to argue with the aim of gaining a small advantage. They're called higglers in Jamaica because most often than not, they are willing to negotiate in order to make the sale. The vending spots in Jamaica are generally The vending spots are generational in that the spots are inherited. For instance, if your grandmother has a spot in the market and she passes on, one of her children, grandchildren, niece, or nephew will take over that spot and carry on business in that spot, which makes it generational and inherited. As such, it is hard for a person who is not from a vending family to get a vending spot in the market. And this is, I think it's safe to say that this happens in all of the outdoor markets in Jamaica. So on Wednesday, October 27, 2021, in preparation for my return to Canada, I was in the Maypen market in Clarendon for several reasons. One was to buy a Dutch pot. The other was to buy fruits for my return trip. Because although we have a lot of fruit trees on our property, there are some fruits that we don't have, or they are out of season. Anyway, after scouting out the markets and deciding on who I was going to patronize, I was on my way to purchase a Dutch pot and some plates from a vendor who I have been patronizing for years. She always gives me good deals and she's always willing to negotiate. So when you find a good vendor, stick to that vendor. So I was on my way to see her to buy the Dutch pot when I heard a commotion and saw people celebrating. I wanted to know what was going on. And I heard people saying, "They finally catch Ida's son." Ida is not the proper name. I changed a name to protect the innocent. I thought that Ida's son was some sort of criminal because there were about 8 people on top of him who appeared to be medical personnel holding him down and juking him. I asked the vendor who I was there to see what was going on. She advised me that for weeks now, medical personnel sent out by the government has been going around and forcefully juking the mentally challenged with the forbidden juice, and that they had forcefully and without authorization juked some perfectly sane individuals as well. As she was explaining to me, I noticed a young man whose arm was in a cast, and he was arguing with a medical personnel. Apparently his arm was broken while they were struggling with him to juke him against his will. He was telling the nurse that if they came after him again, they were going to meet up on his long knife, because he was no longer going to leave his long knife behind. He was also asking what they were going to do about the fact that they had juked him against his will. The health professional looked at the young man and said to him, and I quote, "The only thing me have to give you is another juke like the one where you get already." And then she walked off. At that point, the young man repeated his position about protecting himself in the future and walked off in the other direction of the market. I caution the crowd that once they are through juking the mentally challenged and the underprivileged, they will be next. They try to convince me that they were just giving the mentally challenged their medicine to calm them. They couldn't explain why the young man who was not mentally challenged had gotten juked against his will. After making a few stops, I had gone back to see a couple of young men who I had purchased some goods from earlier because I wanted to buy some carrots and I had forgotten. When I arrived, the young men were standing side by side with their hand carts, which had scallion, onion, thyme, cabbage, June plum on one cart, and I'm not sure what was on the other cart. I think callaloo and yam, because I had purchased some callaloo from one and some onions and scallion from the other. The young men were discussing ways on which they were planning to elevate themselves and to get themselves out of the market and on to better things. After making my purchase, they were curious about where I was from I confirmed to them that I was born in Jamaica but now reside in Canada. One of them, who identified himself as Jay, wanted to know if I would leave him something to remember me by. I agreed to take a picture with him. Just prior to my going back to buy the carrots, there was a commotion not too far from the clock, where vendors were grabbing their goods and running with their hand carts, and some got away. But others were not so lucky. They were arrested and their goods and carts were confiscated. I didn't pay any attention to it because my focus was elsewhere. Then I learned that Jay's goods were seized and taken away along with the handcart because he didn't see the police coming, so he had no time to run. I asked if he would get them back, and he said he would. But he would have to pay for the goods and the cart. I told him that it was a wicked act, and he said that is how the law works in Jamaica. But he is looking about a security work, but he needs some help to get the certificate approved. Apparently the cost is $15,000. I wanted to know what he did wrong. So he said he was selling in a no vending area. I inquired as to where he should have been selling. He told me that they have not been provided with an area where they can sell. And given how the vending spots are passed down from generation to generation, there are no spots available in the legal vending areas. This is the reason why these young men are on the streets or on the sidewalk, or sort of on the street, on the sidewalk side of thing, trying to make a living. I learned that he pays $500 per day to rent the handcart, and he will not get anything back unless he pays a $5,000 fine. He buys his produce and sells it for a small profit. Most of his produce will spoil, and what is not spoiled will be eventually taken to the infirmary, and if he's not able to pay the fine, then the cart will be destroyed and he will be responsible for its replacement. This is how the Jamaican government contributes to the youth becoming criminals in Jamaica. These young men are trying to make a living by buying and selling, and the government is tearing them down and forcing some of them to become criminals. I stood there in the sun, and it was very hot with them for a short while, and I don't know how they do it 7 days a week from sunup to sundown, because these days the sun in Jamaica is very hot, and these young men stand out there and barter with people all day, and try to get people to come and purchase something from them. And this is the thanks they get from the government. Their goods get confiscated and allowed to spoil or taken to the infirmary, and the handcarts are destroyed. Why destroy people's property? What that is saying to me is, you are underprivileged, and if we have anything as the government to say about it, you will remain underprivileged, and that is so wrong. What did I state here? I stated there is something terribly wrong in this country when the government is forcing young law-abiding citizens to walk a path they would not walk if the leaders were more empathic and conscious of what it is like to actually toil for a living. If they confiscate 10 carts for the day, That is $50,000 that they have taken away from poor people in an hour or two. The good thing is that Jay has $5,000 saved towards the $15,000 that he needs for the security certificate. And he doesn't have to pay the rental for the days that the cart is impounded. He wants better for himself and he is determined to achieve it. It amazes me how the Chinese can come to Jamaica, do what they want, build what they want, pay no taxes, but the black man cannot even make an honest living. It galls me that this is happening. And when I go to Jamaica and I used to go to Jamaica and patronize these Chinese places. I've chosen not to do that anymore. They collect taxes from me. What happens to those tax that they collect from me if it's not being turned over to the government? Or maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they have to pay that tax, but maybe they don't have to pay other taxes. I might be missing something. I don't know. But yeah, this is truly frustrating, and it is truly, truly a way to keep the black man down. The system is raping them on a daily basis. And Jamaicans, we need to do something. We need to do something about what is going on in our little island. And the government is not going to solve the problem, because the government in Jamaica is the biggest criminal. And I don't care if YouTube takes this video down. They are the biggest criminal in the country. And the poor man, the poor black man, is suffering. Anyway, I have a lot more to say about my trip to Jamaica, but I'm going to leave this here for now, and stay tuned for my impressions about financial institutions in Jamaica, as well as the experience I had at Pearson International Airport when I returned to Canada. So, until then, I wish you Baruch and Shalom.